Though it's only been out for a couple of years, Cuphead has become one of my favorite games of all time. Not just for the gameplay, the artistry, the imagination, everything that went into this thing is breathtaking. I've heard that there's gonna be some kind of Netflix series and maybe a sequel in the works, and honestly, I can't wait for any of that. First I gotta get Netflix though, right? But I've wanted to talk about Cuphead since the very beginning, and now that I'm playing through it again for like the 7th time, I feel like now's finally the time. But what could I do? Well, why not talk about something that everybody's been talking about, and finally add my 2 cents. Who are the easiest and hardest bosses in Cuphead? Well, given the fact that there's 19 bosses in total, why not go through them all? So here are what I believe to be the easiest to hardest bosses in Cuphead. Now a couple disclaimers. Just because I say a boss is easy or hard doesn't mean I dislike them. I have a fun time with almost all of these bosses. And the other factor is that this is all opinion based. Everyone has a different experience with Cuphead. We don't all have our same strengths and weaknesses. We play the game differently, we have our own strategies, and they may or may not be official, cause really, the strategies are only recommended. So sit back, relax, and don't deal with the devil, folks. Let's get started. The Root Pack is basically the introduction boss. Even if they aren't right front and center like Goopy Legrand, these guys are real pushovers. They're meant to introduce you to the parrying mechanics and just how to shoot the bosses in the face. They're not really difficult, they're not really threatening, especially that onion, and trust me, the secret boss Radish character that's in there doesn't make it any harder. You have to try to lose to these guys, unless you're a beginner, but hey, that's the whole point of the Root Pack. Speak of the devil and he appears. This isn't the devil himself, but this is Goopy Legrand. He is usually the first one that a lot of people seem to face because he's the first one you end up seeing on the map. Even though, technically speaking, he's supposed to be the second one you face. Oh well. Goopy is really easy because his first 2 phases only bounce around. Sure, he's also got a punch move that's easily telegraphed and very, very, very easy to dodge. And then his last phase is even easier because, once again, telegraphed. Not to mention the fact that he's got the easiest parries in the entire game, and you've got Goopy Legrand, a boss who's, let's be real, anything but. But yeah, he can be fun, especially when you're getting back into the game and need to warm up again. This is a bit of a controversial pick, I know, because she's from Inkwell Isle 3. Sally's stage play is supposed to be a later game boss. And as we all know by video game logic, that means she's hard, right? Nope. Ever since I first played this game, I have never had any trouble with her. To be fair, she's one of my favorite of the boss fights. I think she's a nice, even middle ground. But that's not what you need from a later game boss. She has the same problem that Goopy Legrand does. The telegraphing is way too obvious. Not a single attack goes by where she doesn't outright tell you what's going on. Heck, on her 3rd stage, she outright will tell you, in full, clear lettering, what attack she's going to use. Some of them aren't easy to dodge, but when you know what's coming, it's easy to avoid them. Sure, all of the bosses in this game tell you what the attacks are gonna be, but Sally seems to make it a point that you know, for sure, no matter what attack she will be using. Thanks, Sally, it sure makes your fight a whole lot easier. We're going back to Inkwell Isle 1 with Carnation. Funny enough, his final phase is actually easier than the rest, because it's 1 or 2 attacks over and over again. Sure, the first little bit is slightly infuriating, especially when you're starting off, but it's easy to get used to the patterns. You can tell when he's gonna go high, when he's gonna go low, when he's gonna spit the seeds. You just have to memorize it all. And then that final phase is a bit of a pushover, especially when you have a special. You get what I'm saying. Here's another one that does not belong so high up in Inkwell Isle 3, Werner Worman. All you gotta do is parry this guy just right and you'll avoid all of his projectiles. It's simple. And then in the second phase, you gotta avoid the bottle caps, which makes it a little more difficult, but this second phase, despite being the hardest one that this rat has to offer, is not very difficult at all. And then his final phase is the easiest of them all. All you have to do is shoot right up at that cat. The parrying that comes from the ghosts is very easy to avoid, and those falling tiles are almost no threat. If you have a smoke bomb, there's no way you're gonna lose. Werner Worman may take a little bit of getting used to, but as soon as you get used to him, it's curtains for this rodent. Hildeburg may be a little bit difficult when you start off because she's the first plane level, and when you first go through her, don't take that out of context, you don't have bombs. You're stuck with only the regular shot. But, unlike a lot of people, I don't see this as a disadvantage. Personally, I think fighting Hildeburg is better when you're at a distance. The bombs may do more damage, but you'll have a safer distance to avoid all of her attacks when you're at the end of the screen. And you'll be able to land more hits, more correctly, when you use the regular shot. So personally, I don't see that as a disadvantage. Honestly, aside from some really fast attacks and some very, very, very brief telegraphing, I mean, she barely even lets you know when she's doing some of these. The rest is all pretty easy until you get to that final phase, and it's all because of those dang UFOs. They go off as soon as they get close to you, so you'd better lead the shot very carefully, otherwise, say goodbye to that perfect A+ or S ranked run, because oh boy, these things love to mess things up at the final seconds. People are probably going to disagree with me a lot on this one, and again, despite the fact he's one of my favorites, I think it's relatively simple. I think Captain Brinybeard should have been Inkwell Isle too, because it's a really simple fight. Yeah, you got the shark, you got the treasure chest, and you got the squids and all that, but really, it's a pretty simple fight. There's nothing really super stand out about it or extremely difficult. All you gotta do is point and shoot, point and shoot. Although, I will say, when the ship comes alive at the end, that's where things start getting a bit more advanced. You better hope you got that special on standby, because you're gonna need it, trust me. Ribby and Croaks is often considered to be the hardest boss in Inkwell Isle 1, and given the fact that all the Inkwell Isle 1 bosses have been listed already, it's safe to say, I agree! These guys are not very difficult at first, unless you want to parry some of Ribby's punches and you don't know where you're gonna land. That makes it a little bit annoying. However, your difficulty fighting Ribby and Croaks is based entirely on luck, and I mean that. The final form is a slot machine. You can get some of the easier forms or the harder ones, and that's gonna make or break your battle with these two. You have to cross your fingers and hope that you get those easy ones, because if you get the tiger, it's all over. Baroness Von Bonbon is another one where you gotta rely on your luck. See, before the Baroness goes out to fight you herself, she brings in some of her minions. Some of them are pushovers, and then some of them are the cupcake. It all depends on who you're squaring off against, really. But then when she comes in, you gotta roundabout. All you gotta do is roundabout and watch for the head. Cause you don't gotta focus on shooting, you just gotta go away from that nasty zombie cake head or whatever's going on. How does she do that? Is that something that the devil gave her? I don't know. Laurie Warbles is one that I see a lot of people say is extremely difficult, and yeah, I do agree with that on some factor. I don't agree with the bullet hell parts, because all you gotta do is go a little bit up, a little bit down, a little bit up, a little bit down. It's not as bad. However, it's the rest of the phases that give me trouble, especially Junior here. This kid's got some issues. Those eggs are almost impossible to avoid. That, and they block a lot of your hits. So say you're right there, right above him, and you have a perfect time to drop a bomb on him, but then whoops, one of the eggs comes by and intercepts, and now you're cornered. What are you gonna do? You take a hit, that's what. His little parrying objects don't help either, because if you're so busy focusing on avoiding those eggs, you're gonna get hit, and it's not nice. His first phase is a little bit much sometimes, but you gotta hug the sides. Hug the sides. They're your friend, and they want to leave you forever. Don't let them go! And then the final phase is him throwing everything at you. He spits out his heart, which spits out bullets. And then there's a bunch of garbage that comes out. And then there's pills, and only some of it is parryable. Oh. If you blink, or God forbid sneeze during this last segment, you're done. You're finished. Gotta start all over again. Have fun with the bird, everybody! Oh boy. Jimmy the Great likes to throw a lot at you, right out of the gate. His size and scope is already really intimidating. And the first two phases, admittedly, aren't too bad. But when he breaks out the puppet, that's when things get nasty. Not only does the puppet shoot, but his turban goes around spitting tons and tons of cannonballs. How are you gonna avoid all this? You can't sometimes. Sometimes you're cornered and you gotta take the hit. And then there's that last phase with those big Bill Cipher pyramids that create those cross energy beams. That's a lot. You gotta keep your eye on those eyes when they open up and then they shoot out the lasers. And you gotta make sure you're hitting Jimmy too, because your bullets are not gonna go through those pyramids. And he shoots mind lasers. I hate mind lasers, and this is no different. Baby the Clown is another character that likes to throw everything he's got at you, including a roller coaster. Now, I will agree with everybody here on this. If it wasn't for that roller coaster, this guy wouldn't be so difficult. But in all the phases except for the first one, there's a roller coaster that goes by and tries to flatten you, and it gets faster and faster and faster. Don't try to smoke bomb through it too, because sometimes it's not gonna end up working. That final phase where he throws out the penguins and the roller coaster, hoo boy, it's a headache. Not to say that the rest is a walk in the park either. His first phase right out of the gate tries to hunt you down and smash you with a bumper car. The second phase is probably the easiest with the balloon animals, but that's where it introduces that roller coaster. Then the third, you gotta make sure you're paying attention to everything on the screen. Otherwise, you're gonna have a bad time. And that's how I can describe this entire fight with this clown. Be on your guard, at all times. Don't blink. Calamaria is a fight that always keeps you on your toes, which is ironic because it's a plane level and you're never on the ground, so how can you be on the toes? You can't walk on water. Anyways, this girl likes to throw everything at you like Baby the Clown, but unlike the clown, she mixes things together. So she doesn't just create screen wipes of bullets, or has a turtle go in that shoots a big ol' wave of cannonballs. No, she likes to mix them. So sometimes you'll have ghosts and pufferfish, sometimes you'll have bullets upon bullets. Oh, it's a lot, I tell ya. It's another one that you kinda gotta rely on luck. If you get two easy ones together like the seahorse and the yellowfish, then you're probably gonna be better off. But if you get the pufferfish and ghosts, that's not gonna be fun. The second phase would be easier with a lot of bullets, if it wasn't for the fact that she likes to freeze you in stone all the time. And don't get me started on that third phase. Rumor Honeybottoms is only difficult because of the stage she's on. It's a vertical scrolling stage. And you know what Cuphead has not had you do before? Shoot down, which is quite difficult. Yeah, you can use Chaser, but that takes forever to kill an enemy. Charge Shot is your best friend here. The first couple phases aren't too bad. Sometimes though, it can be a bit difficult because you're trying to jump from level to level, from platform to platform, but then whoops, you undershot it, or whoops, a platform didn't appear where you believed it to appear, and now you've been hit by something that you couldn't see coming. That enough is bad, but when you get to the last phase where she goes really fast, and only briefly telegraphs her attacks, and you have to shoot down to hit her, which means that most of your specials will not work, you're kind of in a pickle. It's not a very easy situation, at all. You've got to be very precise with how you hit, which is why, again, I have to say, Charge Shot is your friend. Charge up a big hit, shoot down a couple times, and you'll be in and out there quickly. Just don't miss any shots. You can't afford to waste time in this hive. People all across the board say Grim Matchstick is one of the hardest, and I do have to agree, he is number 5, although I will say, the RNG clouds don't really bother me too much as they do other people. Mostly because they're kinda easy to spot. It's not like the platforms in Rumor Honeybottoms that, let's be real, blend into the background. These are quite obvious and front and center. But what makes me put Grim Matchstick up so high? Well, it's everything else. The first phase isn't too bad, but then you get to the second phase. If you don't have something like Chaser or Roundabout, it's gonna be hard to hit this guy. He's got these little fire flamin' hot Cheeto creatures running around on his tongue, and they like to jump and chase you. And you gotta keep an eye out for them. Always. More than one can jump at a time. If that wasn't bad enough, we get to his last phase. He's got 3 heads, and he spits these unbelievably aggravating fireballs. They come right for you, and if you hit them, they create a wave of smaller fireballs. I love it! I've always wanted aggravation, and now I've got it! You get a little bit of a break sometimes when one of the heads turns into a flamethrower, but if you're not careful, you're gonna get caught up with that. But it's those fireballs, those dang fireballs that get you every time. Getting a perfect run on this is almost impossible. You have to watch out. Not even Roundabout can help you here, because one false step and you're gonna get hit with a wide spread of fireballs that you did not mean to unleash. Here we have the Devil, the last boss in the game, and yet, he's as hard as you'd expect a last boss to be, although he's not the hardest, which is kinda surprising to me. Still, this guy likes to throw everything at you. He's the last boss. That's his job. He's got such a wide array of powers, it's gonna take you a lot of retries to get to see them all. You've gotta be ready, especially in those last phases where he drops that big blue poker chip on you. Because in the last phase, you're only on one platform, and you know exactly where that chip is coming. he also likes to surround himself with little imps and gargoyles. And oh boy, do they make sure that you stay alert during this entire fight. Those skulls that they spit out are not laughing matters, let me tell you. While yes, his telegraphing is quite obvious, that doesn't change the fact that his attacks go fast. You gotta make sure that you're on your toes. You gotta be faster than the devil. Outrun the devil, as the kids in It would say. But this isn't it, this is Cuphead. And the devil is one tough guy to beat. You've come all this way, though, so hopefully you're battle-hardened enough to take on the Lord of Evil. The Phantom Express is probably one of the most varied bosses in the game. You've got 4 different people to go up against, technically 5 if you count these two as you know what I'm saying. They throw a lot of projectiles at you. And I'm not talking about just the end here, where it's tons of fireballs and that stupid bone ring. I'm talking about these ghosts and pumpkins that like to drop parryable objects. If you mess up one of these parries, you either take a hit, or your car that you're on gets pushed closer to the boss, and you get hit. Chances are, you're getting hit, so parry all of these things. However, that's not always going to work either, because if you parry at the wrong time, you're going to get thrown right into an attack. Oh boy, it's almost impossible to win with this one. Not to mention the fact that a lot of it is random chance. Where is this guy gonna pop up? Where are these guys gonna start shooting their electric vomit? Where is that bone gonna go? A lot of that is depending on you and where you go, but you don't know that when you're looking at all these pumpkins and ghosts saying, I gotta parry this, otherwise I'm gonna get thrown right into death. Oops, I got hit anyways. Lucky me. King Dice is the devil's right-hand man, as his famous song says, and this is the boss rush of the game. Rather than fighting King Dice alone, which you do at the end, you gotta fight all of his 9 minions on this roulette table that you have to decide which one you go up against by rolling the dice. Only very rarely can you get health upgrades, and that's only on specific bosses, as you can see right here. And it's just as easy to lose health as it is to gain. And it's not like Cuphead where whenever you beat a boss, you get your health refilled. No, you gotta go through the whole wheel, making sure you don't get down to that dreaded 1 HP. Because if you do, you're not gonna beat King Dice unless you're really, really good at parrying and dashing. The fight with King Dice himself isn't all too bad, but you're battle damaged by the time you get there more often than not. You gotta pray that you get some of the easier ones like the roulette wheel, and avoid the ones like the monkey. I hate that monkey. King Dice has a lot of helpers, and you gotta make sure you clear all of them before you get to the king himself. Cause trust me, you're gonna need all of that health when you get to the end. It's too bad that the rest of those goons want to take it from you. I hate this boss. This is the only one in the game that I really do not like. Dr. Call's robot is the hardest boss in Cuphead, in my opinion. Dr. Call's robot is unbelievably hard. You know why? Because it doesn't stop. It never lets up. First off, it starts with an onslaught of constant projectiles, and every time you disarm him, he equips himself with a stronger weapon. Oh boy. Then he spits his head at you, and you gotta bomb that, because bombing's the only way to get that done, while bombs chase you, and those bombs have a massive blast radius. And then, we get to the hardest part. Dr. Call breaks off the robot's head and then flies around in it, while spitting out gem particles at you. You gotta fly through these, and only very few of them are parryable, and you gotta look out for them if you want that S rank. Not only that, but there's these electric bars that are all across the screen, and you gotta avoid that as well as the bullet hell going on. It's not like Laurie Warbles where you gotta go a little bit up, a little bit down. That's not gonna cut it here, because if you go a little bit up, a little bit down, you're gonna get shocked, and then die. He also takes a lot of hits. A lot of hits. Basically, there's only 2 phases with that one brief one with his head flying around. That head is very easy to